I am a researcher. I'm a cultural anthropologist, and I work on a lot of issues related to how marginalized people move through modern spaces. And so that includes work on Indigenous peoples in the modern worlds, how they relate to and navigate modern economies, capitalist economies, how including things like their food resources, healthcare resources, things like that are impacted by their relationship to nation states. I'm currently an adjunct instructor at a university and a research coordinator at another. So my field work in graduate school, I worked with groups in Guatemala, groups of female artisans. And while I was there, I interviewed them about how their ever-changing financial situation through the selling of these artisanal goods to a global market was impacting their sense of womanhood, their sense of indigeneity, and their relationships in their communities. I live in Cincinnati, Ohio, which is in the Midwestern United States. And there are neighborhoods in Cincinnati that have been redlined. So it essentially means they've been segregated on the basis of race and class. And while I was in graduate school, I was working at a local nonprofit that served a community in our city where a lot of people live well below the poverty line, and a lot of those people are non-white. During my term there, the grocery store, the only grocery store in the neighborhood, closed. So the people there were left living in what we call a food desert. So in order to access a grocery store, they had to leave the neighborhood, which of course is difficult if you don't have a car, which a lot of people don't, or other reliable transportation that doesn't cost additional money. And so once the grocery store closed, myself, along with lots of other people, have been working to restore the space that was formerly a grocery store into a grocery store again. And so part of the work that went into that was actually communicating with the people in the neighborhood, doing surveys, hosting town halls to see what they really valued in not just foods and what they wanted to buy, but also how they wanted the store to serve as a communal space. When I was working with the nonprofit that I was collaborating with in Guatemala to connect me to women to interview, when I finished that, I was hoping to essentially thank this organization by making, more connections for them here in the US and have them be kind of like a local wholesaler, like right from the source. And, that would ultimately provide more funds for these Indigenous women that I had been working with. And in having a really hard time and in not being successful in making those connections for them, you start to realize the barriers, which I had known, but of course you start to experience them firsthand, the barriers that exist for Indigenous peoples as they work to achieve economic equality, or even access to things that would start to put them in, the same economic and social brackets that non-Indigenous people have access to. The fact that a lot of people live in rural areas, the fact that they don't have a lot of the startup money to begin to participate in a lot of these partnerships, you realize how difficult it is and how those social barriers are created so that they don't have that access. So, if people are involved in activist scholar work, you need to be ready to understand that it takes a long time. And, there are just lots of obstacles, lots of barriers that are placed there intentionally, because, the system is set up to not have Indigenous people succeed. Um, yeah, Yeah, so sometimes, you do have to accept a failure as a failure, in that specific endeavor. I was unsuccessful, but I think that I maintained my passion through, I guess just believing in the good fight and that there will be other opportunities to help other people be successful. And then, there may still be an opportunity in the future to help that organization or those women be successful. So, anyone who's involved in activist scholar work, it does definitely have to come from within. And there's not too much of any sort of financial or fame award for you at the end of it. You just have to genuinely care about the people that you are collaborating with and that you say you're advocating for. I'm not a member of any Indigenous group, but I am a Black American. So I do, personally experience a lot of obstacles with being a marginalized person. And I believe in trying to dismantle all of those obstacles wherever they exist for anyone. So I found that, collaborating with Indigenous people has been in part, sort of an avenue to liberation for also Black people, because I don't think that, Black liberation is going to come through white supremacy either. So I believe in building networks between marginalized people. I believe that, when one of us wins, like we all win. So I think that it's a good fight. If you can help make one facet of someone's life, more whole and more in accordance to their cultural beliefs and long-time life ways, then you are working to restore those communities and dismantle, the impact that white supremacy has had on them. So I think that the biggest thing is to always be in the mindset to listen and learn. So much to learn from everyone else. You do have a lot to give though, but and then in those conversations, seeing how much can come from it and how much you can change when you work together and you have the right goals and you keep up the hard work. Of course, you share what you know as you're learning or sharing, here's my opinion on it, here's my take on it. The purpose of this is to understand what Indigenous peoples have been doing, for thousands of years, and that this has been a sustainable life way. And, if you're not Indigenous, the best way for you to be an ally to those people is to listen to them, learn about what those life ways are, learn about those food ways and the way they maintain ecosystems, and then realize that they should be the ones leading projects to put in that infrastructure to restore the infrastructure that once was. So, that positioning to be like, I'm here to listen and learn and empower the people that are the most directly impacted by this is really what's going to make you the best activist you can be.